In this video, we'll explore the concept of heritage-sensitive products, what they are, how they are defined, and how they are approached across different disciplines. We'll highlight key examples from the textile industry and the Alpine region to illustrate these ideas. Finally, we'll examine the current threats facing heritage-sensitive products today. Let's begin by asking a few key questions. What is a heritage-sensitive product? How can a product be part of heritage, and what makes it sensitive? These are likely some of the questions that come to mind when encountering the term. In this module, we'll explore the fascinating, yet complex, concept of heritage-sensitive products. This is a multidimensional construct with various definitions, each highlighting different elements. We'll take a closer look at how two major institutions, UNESCO and WIPO, define and approach heritage-sensitive products. We'll also examine how the concept is treated within the business field, particularly through the lens of marketing. UNESCO, the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, is a specialized agency of the UN that fosters international collaboration in education, science, culture, and the preservation of cultural heritage. Within UNESCO, there is a dedicated focus on safeguarding what is known as living heritage. This commitment was formalized in the 2003 Convention for the Safeguarding of the Intangible Cultural Heritage. According to this convention, heritage-sensitive products fall under the broader category of intangible cultural heritage, or ICH. ICH is defined as the practices, representations, expressions, knowledge, skills, as well as the instruments, objects, artifacts, and cultural spaces associated therewith, that communities, groups, and, in some cases, individuals recognize as part of their cultural heritage. Intangible cultural heritage takes many forms, including oral traditions, performing arts, rituals, knowledge related to nature, and traditional craftsmanship. A compelling example of intangible cultural heritage is transhumance, which was added to UNESCO's representative list in 2023. Transhumance refers to the seasonal movement of people and their livestock between different geographical or climatic regions. Each spring and autumn, herders guide thousands of animals along traditional pastoral routes. UNESCO recognizes multiple forms of transhumance across Europe. One notable example is the transhumance practiced since the 11th century between the plains of Provence and the Alps. In this tradition, Merinos d'Isles sheep are moved from the coastal areas, where they spend the winter, to alpine pastures for the summer months. This journey follows a historic network of drovers' roads, known locally as trails or cairns, that connect Basse-Provence to the highlands. This centuries-old tradition has seen a recent revival through the La Route project, launched in 2020, which established a cultural tourism route along these transhumant paths, celebrating and sustaining the heritage of pastoral life. In the framework of the 2003 Convention on the Safeguarding of Living Heritage, UNESCO places strong emphasis on the intergenerational transmission of practices and skills. These living traditions are continuously recreated by communities in response to their environment, their interaction with nature, and their historical context. They offer a sense of identity and continuity, fostering respect for cultural diversity and human creativity. Another key aspect highlighted by the convention is traditional craftsmanship. These products are typically handmade by community members, requiring specific knowledge, refined skills, and often a significant investment of time, underscoring their cultural and artisanal value. On this slide, we're showing examples of intangible cultural heritage connected to the textile industry. On the left, you'll see Alençon needle lace making. This is an incredibly detailed and delicate technique, practiced in the town of Alençon in Normandy, France. It's highly time-consuming. Just 1 square centimeter of lace can take up to 7 hours to complete. In the center, there's an example of Aubusson tapestry. Added to UNESCO's ICH list in 2009, this tradition includes handmade wall hangings, rugs, and upholstered furnishings. Every piece is woven entirely by hand, keeping centuries-old methods alive. And on the right, we have blue dyeing. This involves applying a dye-resistant paste to fabric before soaking it in indigo. Some of the tools used in this process are more than 300 years old. Blue dyeing is still actively practiced today in countries like Germany, Austria, Hungary, Czechia, and Slovakia. While UNESCO celebrates the cultural value of these traditions, it also points out the risks they face, things like over-commercialization, decontextualization, and misrepresentation. These can all threaten the authenticity and sustainability of the practice. So, protecting intangible cultural heritage isn't just about preserving techniques, it's also about honoring the communities and voices that keep them alive. Another key perspective on heritage-sensitive products comes from the World Intellectual Property Organization, or WIPO, part of the United Nations family. WIPO approaches heritage through the lens of traditional knowledge, or TK, and traditional cultural expressions, or TCEs. Traditional knowledge refers to the know-how, skills, and practices that are developed, sustained, and passed down through generations within a community. This kind of knowledge is often deeply tied to a group's cultural or spiritual identity. Traditional cultural expressions, on the other hand, are the many ways traditional culture is expressed, through oral and visual traditions, music, and crafts, including textiles. A great example is the Kilim of Pirot, from the town of Pirot in southeastern Serbia. This region has a long-standing tradition of carpet making, known for the exceptional quality of its designs. Since the 1920s, production standards have been formally regulated. Today, the Kilim is protected by a geographical indication and is produced by a women's cooperative that continues this valuable heritage. WIPO plays a crucial role in helping communities protect these traditions from misappropriation and unauthorized use. It offers legal tools like intellectual property rights, recognition of customary law, and international legal instruments. One such tool is the Lisbon System, a global framework that safeguards appellations of origin and geographical indications. It's an international agreement involving 73 countries working together to protect these unique cultural assets. In the field of marketing, a different approach to heritage-sensitive products has developed, one that's mostly independent from the definitions put forward by UNESCO or WIPO. Here, researchers refer to two main streams of literature. The first focuses on brand heritage. This refers to aspects of a brand's identity that are deeply rooted in its history, things like a proven track record, long-standing traditions, core values, symbolic elements, and a clear commitment to preserving its legacy. Even though this research usually focuses on individual brands, some of its insights can be applied more broadly to groups of producers who are united by a shared cultural heritage. One key idea from this literature is that using heritage in marketing is a strategic choice. It's a way for producers to propose a unique proposition within the marketplace. And it works. When a brand highlights its heritage, consumers tend to respond positively. It can build trust, foster stronger emotional connections, reduce perceived risk, and increase perceived value and satisfaction. The second stream of literature on heritage-sensitive products has focused mainly on traditional craftsmanship. Interestingly, there's no single agreed-upon definition of what traditional craftsmanship means. But most researchers point to a few common features. Production is at least partly handmade. It often involves the use of old machinery or traditional techniques. The methods have remained stable over a long period of time, and modern technologies are generally avoided. In recent years, there's been a noticeable surge in interest around traditional products, especially in the food sector. This growing appeal is often driven by nostalgia for the past and a desire to preserve cultural traditions. As a result, traditional products have become more widely available and accessible to a broader range of consumers. While UNESCO, WIPO, and the marketing field each approach heritage-sensitive products from different angles, they share several important commonalities. At the heart of heritage-sensitive products are knowledge, skills, and practices. Whether recognized by UNESCO as intangible cultural heritage, protected under WIPO's legal frameworks, or used in marketing to convey authenticity, craftsmanship matters. These are not just techniques, they are lived experiences, refined over time and passed down with care. The second element refers to the fact that heritage-sensitive products are deeply rooted in community and culture. They aren't just created, they belong, they carry meaning because they reflect the values, identity, and worldview of the communities that sustain them. Without the community, the product loses its context and its soul. Last but not least, all three perspectives emphasize the significance of the past. Heritage-sensitive products are more than just beautiful or functional, they tell stories. They are bridges between generations, shaped by history, memory, and tradition. By preserving them, we keep those stories alive. Some products available in the market today can be considered heritage-sensitive, though to varying degrees. We can think of these products as falling along a continuum, depending on how much they rely on traditional methods versus how much innovation they introduce. At one end of the spectrum, we have survival products. These are made using the same techniques as in the past, with very little innovation. Their production might take place within small communities, in remote areas, or as part of heritage demonstrations. In some cases, these products may be seen as outdated or merely historical curiosities. But for others, especially within their communities, they represent a deep sense of authenticity. A good example is Loden, the traditional costume of Styria, which continues to be made using time-honored methods. The pictures on the left showcases the dressing process, a final stage of Loden wool preparation made with natural cardoons, which gives the fabric its unique feel and shine. This gentle treatment makes the wool especially fluffy. Next, we have retro innovations. These products are created by reviving old skills and knowledge that had fallen out of use. Inspiration can come from existing artifacts, museum pieces, anthropological records, or oral traditions. Ironically, while these products look traditional, they are actually quite innovative, because their makers are creatively reconstructing past practices without direct transmission. Retro innovations bring forgotten techniques back into the present, expanding the heritage skill set while remaining within what communities still recognize as living tradition. Of course, as this repertoire evolves, some older techniques may be lost again, simply because they are no longer seen as relevant or worth passing on. Then we come to living heritage products. These are products and production processes that have gradually adapted over time in response to lifestyle changes, market demands, technical advancements, or regulations. Take Friuli shoes, for example. Originally made in the Alpine region of Friuli in northern Italy, they were once worn by farmers and later by gondoliers in Venice. Traditionally handmade from repurposed materials like bicycle tires and coffee bean sacks, Friuli have recently gained popularity as fashionable loungewear. Today, some artisans still use the original techniques and materials. But growing demand has also led to the use of finer materials like silk, more elaborate designs, and even mass production by fashion brands. Finally, at the other extreme, we find radically new products. These combine traditional knowledge with entirely new techniques or technologies, leading to major changes in form, function, or production methods. Sometimes, traditional skills are used to create completely new items, or adapted with innovations that lower costs and increase production. In these cases, the link to heritage is still there, but it's heavily reimagined for a contemporary context. Interestingly, marketing research has shown that heritage-sensitive products tend to spark very positive responses from consumers. First, when a product is seen as traditional and rooted in local heritage, it changes how people perceive it. Studies have found that when products are handmade, crafted with artisanal methods, and use traditional techniques, they are seen as more authentic. These same qualities also enhance the perceived quality and credibility of the product. One element that stands out in particular is the handmade nature of the item. Consumers often feel that a handmade product carries emotional value, almost like it's infused with the artisan's passion and care. This sense of symbolic love can strongly influence their emotional connection to the product and increase their appreciation for the product. Second, heritage-sensitive products also deliver psychological benefits. Buying a product made with traditional methods makes consumers feel like they are helping preserve cultural traditions and contributing to the greater good and society. These products fulfill a deeper human need, the desire to feel grounded, to feel connected to one's place, community, and history. Traditional methods often signal local, ethical, and sustainable production, which in turn can generate feelings of pride and local identity. And finally, handmade goods also evoke what's known as anticipated warm glow, the positive feeling people expect to experience after doing something good. In this case, it's the satisfaction of supporting craftsmanship and tradition, simply through their purchase. While heritage-sensitive products are gaining increased attention from various stakeholders, they also face several important threats that shouldn't be overlooked. On one side, some of these products are losing their uniqueness and authenticity, often because their traditional qualities have faded over time. A key factor here is mass production. When heritage-sensitive products are manufactured on a large scale, their original meaning and craftsmanship can become diluted. This issue is often made worse when small, independent producers are acquired by large corporations, leading to the erosion of the very values that once made these products unique. Another growing concern is the rise of craft washing. This is when big brands imitate the look and feel of artisanal or handmade products, trying to benefit from the positive associations consumers have with traditional craftsmanship, without actually using authentic methods. At the same time, and perhaps paradoxically, there's also a decline in appreciation for heritage-sensitive products among certain consumer segments. Some people, especially younger or more progressive consumers, may feel disconnected from traditional products. They might see them as outdated or even restrictive, preferring innovation and novelty over heritage and continuity. This creates a double-edged challenge. On one side, conservative consumers may be drawn to the familiarity and cultural value of traditional products. On the other, more liberal consumers may actively reject them, seeking products that allow them to break away from the past. The risk here is that traditional products may end up being appreciated only by a small group of connoisseurs, while the broader public loses the ability, and even the interest, to recognize their value. And without that wider appreciation, the long-term survival of these heritage-sensitive practices becomes uncertain. A third major threat to heritage-sensitive products is cultural appropriation. This happens when traditional products are produced or used by individuals or companies outside the cultural group they originate from, often without proper understanding, acknowledgement, or respect. In these cases, what begins as cultural appreciation can easily turn into exploitation. Cultural appropriation often occurs in several ways. First, when the meaning of a cultural element is trivialized, such as using symbols or designs without recognizing their traditional significance or historical context. Second, when traditional products are sold at a much higher price by outsiders, while the original communities see little or no benefit or compensation. Third, when the use of a cultural element is done without consent, with no attempt to ask for permission or involve the community in how the element is used or represented. And finally, when the history behind the product is poorly documented or completely ignored. This can erase or distort the cultural narrative that gives the product its meaning. These practices don't just misrepresent heritage, they actively harm the communities who created and preserved these traditions. That's why respecting intellectual property rights, ensuring proper credit, and involving source communities in the value chain is essential for ethical engagement with heritage-sensitive products. Finally, one of the greatest threats to heritage-sensitive products is the loss of traditional skills needed to produce them. In many communities, these skills are no longer passed down from one generation to the next, leaving younger people unable to make the products that once defined their local identity. This trend is widespread, but encouragingly, some initiatives are working to preserve and revitalize these skills. On this slide, we highlight two important examples from the Alpine region. On the left, you see the coperta poschiavina, a traditional blanket from the Poschiavo Valley in the canton of Graubünden, Switzerland. These blankets, often treasured by local families, are known for their distinctive herringbone pattern and alternating wide and narrow stripes. The colors and weaving styles have been passed down through generations, making them a unique expression of Alpine textile craftsmanship. Traditionally, they were woven at home as part of a bride's dowry. In recent years, however, standardized versions have become more common, leading to a loss of variation in colors and designs. To counter this, the Musei Valposchiavo launched an initiative to document, classify, and preserve the traditional diversity of these blankets. On the right, you see the Pezzotto carpet, a colorful, patchwork-style rug from Valtellina in northern Italy. Originally made by repurposing old fabric scraps, like worn tablecloths, curtains, or leftover cloth, the Pezzotto was a practical solution for everyday needs. It was used to cover animals or protect wheat seeds. Starting in the 1940s, it was reimagined as a decorative carpet, often featuring bold geometric patterns and fringes. In more recent years, it's even been adapted into placemats. Pezzotti were once produced in nearly every household, using family-owned looms. But after World War II, handmade production declined sharply. For instance, in the Val d'Aregna area, there were 25 artisans making pezzotti in the 1970s. Today, only one traditional workshop remains. Fortunately, preservation efforts like the Pezzotto della Val d'Aregna project are working to safeguard the knowledge and skills needed to keep this craft alive.